welcome to the TrialSite News Farrago Podcast. I am Erin, your host. Thanks for joining in. And today we are joined by John Dwyer, who is President and CEO of the Global Alzheimer's Platform Foundation, which we'll learn a lot more about today. Obviously, this is a disease that impacts many in numerous ways. John, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
Yeah. And before we dive into about what you're doing now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in Alzheimer's disease?
I'll take the interest is developed from a family experience, which has been fairly ugly and pronounced. So my grandmother died of Alzheimer's. She was a good Irish Catholic girl and had 12 children. Of her 12 children, 7 of them died of Alzheimer's, maybe one of a mixed Parkinson's Alzheimer's, wow. And including my father. Not accounting for the priest and the 2 nuns, my aunts and my uncle, the remaining 9 children were fruitful and multiplied. So I have about 70 first cousins between both sides of my family. So, and thank God, whatever was going on in my dad's family, we have not seen the same incidence or prevalence of Alzheimer's among my first cousins, but we have seen some. And we've seen some CNS disease. You can either ignore it or fight it. So I decided to fight it, and I'm in it to win it.
I love that, in it to win it. So GAP, is that the acronym? GAP?
Correct.
Okay. Just the mission is to speed the delivery of innovative therapies by reducing the time and cost of Alzheimer's clinical trials. I'm just curious, has that mission evolved over the last few years, especially with the new technologies and the new partnerships that you guys?
It absolutely has. Yeah, very good question. Let me just briefly give you a little historical context, because it was really our roots are really interesting in that there were a group of public servants, KOL, key opinion leader researchers, and some philanthropic groups and pharma groups that all met back in 2015, 10 years ago now, in the New York Academy of Sciences to entertain a very interesting question. The convening was led by my chairman and good friend, George Vredenberg, with whom I co-founded Us Against Alzheimer's. And the question that was posed was, what is it about Alzheimer's clinical research that is not being adequately addressed to facilitate the discovery of cures or therapies? I have to editorialize and say, I think they were probably a little too bullish on the science, but the thing that they became quite animated about was Alzheimer's trials, and this is still true today for different reasons, tend to be in the top 5 for longest in duration, in expense, and in failure rate. 3 things you don't want to be in the top 5 of. And so they took the unusual step to create a not-for-profit company intended to be focused on just this question. How do we create a clinical trial design that is more productive, less prone to under-reporting results or inadequately reporting results, disappointing results, however you want to phrase it, and that can work with some greater speed. So both pharma companies and philanthropy chipped in some money, and they did so with an interesting understanding that is not typical for a not-for-profit. We had a sunset provision, which said, we're going to give you money for 5 years, and you're going to not get a penny after 5 years. So figure it out, see how you can be self-sustaining, or you'll close down and nobody will hold it against you because it was the good college try. So with that as way of background, you should know we were empowered to think outside the box, to work with a sense of urgency. And I had just sold my last business about a year and a half before 2016. When I took this job, I was on the board of the foundation, and I was asked to take the leadership role. And all I'll say is we've always operated as if we were a private venture-backed company, even though we're not, because that was my background. And because if we were going to change the process, we had to change it with that sense of urgency that early growth emerging companies have. That's the only thing they have is speed. They don't have more money. They don't necessarily have more brains. They just have a huge incentive to get things done quickly. So you asked the question, well, how have we evolved? Well, we started, interestingly, doing things that a lot of things you do in healthcare are obvious, but just don't get done. So if you do those things, you tend to get good results. In two aspects, we created a very large network of clinical trial sites that demonstrated a willingness to get better. And what's unusual about the GAP network is it's composed of both academic sites and private commercial sites. Very unusual because most of these dedicated networks are all academic. And we were able to let the lamb lie down with the lion and collaborate. The other thing we did, and now it sounds like, so what's the big deal? Well, in 2016, 2017, we were the first ones right on the tail of the NIH announcement that all multi-site trials were going to be required to have a single IRB. We implemented a single IRB. And we said all our studies are going to be covered by not the institution's IRB, 1,000 points of slowness, but a one throat to choke, one common denominator of quality and ethics. And we picked what's today Advara. And I have to say it was one of the most productive first steps we could have taken. Really, just plain old time was pushed out of that process at such across the whole platform. And they have been great. They've been a great partner and extraordinarily rigorous, but extraordinarily organized for rapid decision-making and meeting the needs of the science, not having the science to meet the needs of the IRB.
And could you, for our listeners who may not know what an IRB is, can you just briefly explain what it is?
Institutional Research Board.
Mm-hmm.
And what they are supposed to do, and generally do well, is to safeguard the study and speak on behalf of study participants in terms of the ethical conduct of the study, the safety of the study, and general other interesting questions like, are we overly incenting participation and buying participation rather than encouraging participation? Vitally important, an independent voice in the clinical trial process. And we have been quite pleased with the partnership. Does that answer your question?
Yes. No, it's good. I wasn't sure if everybody listening knows what an IRB is.
Well, they do. They have a little better understanding.
Go ahead.
So let me tell you what changed, because this is why you and I are talking, because you were talking about Hermes. So for your listeners, a remarkable in a field that had not seen a significant therapeutic agent approved in over 20 years. We've now seen 3 therapeutic agents for disease modification approved, and one blood biomarker cleared for the measure of amyloid. And that's just, that is the equivalent of an earthquake in science, to see that much progress made in the last couple of years. So we were early, somewhat early, driven by COVID. A little bit of an entrepreneurial story here. So COVID hit, and we were conducting studies with all the many of the big pharma companies and the biotechs, and COVID messed everybody up. I mean, we were working in sites, hospitals, for example, where to get to the neurology department, you had to walk through the pulmonology waiting room, which isn't a great thing during COVID.
Right.
So that hospital closed down its neurology research, understandably.
Yeah.
So we were all struggling with, how do you continue to do business? How do you continue to move the scientific needle? And we used our downtime, as any entrepreneurial organization would, to, okay, what can we do? And where is the question we asked was, where is the puck going to be, in honor of Gretzky? And then we asked, how do we get there? And the answer was, we need to get a lot smarter about the emerging blood markers and other diagnostic indicators that we knew were coming, so we could incorporate them into clinical trials. So while we were lying fallow, we were doing some studies. We weren't dead, but we were lying fallow on the level of activity we had in clinical trials. We sponsored our own study. And you want to talk about, I'm old enough to be able to say, don't be faint of heart when you start a study without having all the money in the bank. And do a biomarker study intended to create what we hoped would be, and we think we have, a uniquely detailed and broad data set that can inform the field on various aspects of the phenotypes that we are recruiting into clinical trials for Alzheimer's studies.
Okay,
we started that.
Hermes?
This is we called it BioHermes.
BioHermes. Okay.
Yep, Bio-Hermes. That is after the Greek god of speed, the messenger god, and not after a French handbag, which has confused some people.
Okay.
And so what we did was, we set some interesting parameters. Because it was our own study, we could do that. And among these parameters that we learned were not being adequately addressed in our clinical trial work, we wanted to take all these emerging technologies. Remember, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not a doc. And I said, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be a bunch of claims out there about, how well each of these technologies works, and what their best indication of use would be. And I wanted to create a head-to-head equivalency superiority, if you will, a Consumer Reports sort of format, so we could compare how certain digital cognitive tests operated, how certain blood tests operated, all compared to traditional cognitive tests and beta amyloid PET. That was the underlying goal. Interestingly and happily, a lot of companies participated. And they did it for two reasons. One, they wanted to get some validation data in a hurry. And second, no one company, not even big pharma, was going to fund this kind of a study solo. So we were able to create a marketplace of scientific opportunity at an economic price that allowed both small companies and big pharma and philanthropy to all participate. So we had a great deal of support. And this is two of our characteristics as an organization. We did it quickly. We started it in early 22, 1,000 people across 3 cohorts, uh, not non-cognitively impaired, MCI and mild AD, and in roughly even distribution. And we finished in the summer of 23, so it was reasonably quick. And we also made a firm commitment to ourselves and to the field that we were not going to end the study until we had achieved at least a 20% non-white participation. We knew the field was not enrolling African American, Latino, Asian American populations commensurate with the incidence and prevalence of the disease in those groups. And we knew it was a deficiency in the way trials were being conducted. And we decided to go in there and really try and give the field a broader ethnic and racial set of data to see how these technologies were going to operate. So we did that. We finished in the summer of 23, cleaned the data, and reported out at CTAD at the end of 23. Our first report. And you can ask me, what did you report out on CTAD? Because it was really interesting. Okay. We reported, along with GW, George Washington University, which is a great research center, and along with the IDEAS study, that every one of us were finding that when the blood tests were applied to non-white populations, they significantly underexpressed amyloid compared to white populations. Significantly. About 50% less high amyloid levels in the Black community, and about 15 to 20% lower in the Latino community.
And this is in the general population, like generally.
So when we took the blood tests across our study, we found that people with clear cognitive impairment were showing lower amyloid burden in the African American community and Latino community than the white community. Okay. By very significant margins. Okay. Completely changes then what was so telling when Dr. Hodis in October of 2023 said, multi-pathologies are the rule, not the exception in dementia. We, not just us, but the data was really starting to profile that it's more than amyloid tau neural inflammation at work to create this large population of dementia that we all talk about. It's either 5 million, 7 million, 10 million folks in the United States with dementia, but a large percentage, in my opinion, probably less than half of all the dementia population is true Alzheimer's, and the others are something else. And you as an epidemiologist should find that very interesting. I do. And so our job, we think, is to create trials for everybody. Get trials to everyone so that we give access, learn things, make sure that therapies that can help underserved communities are serving those communities, and then use blood markers and other technologies like digital cognitive tests to more precisely define what is the condition of participants that want to be in those trials. Are they actually high amyloid? Is there a chance there's vascular dementia at work or alpha-synuclein at work that could be conflating the results we're going to see? But more importantly, that is causing this person's condition, and how do we treat it? I know that was a long-winded explanation, but that's a quick summary of how we have evolved in our thinking.
No, it was great. And this landmark data set is now publicly available?
That was one of the deals we cut with our philanthropic funders, that we were not going to bottle it up in perpetuity. Yep. We had a 2-year waiting period so that the people that had invested in the study could have first use. That was only fair. And then actually, July 31st, last month, we put the whole data set on the Alzheimer's disease data initiative, a Gates Ventures, really great Gates Ventures funded data environment. And that whole data set is now available to the world to explore and use for research. It has a workbench, so you don't have to have all kinds of sophisticated statistical tools. They'll provide those in the workbench, or you can download the whole over 1 terabyte of data yourself and go at it. We also have a very quick approval process. It is not our mission to over scrutinize applicants. As long as your post office box is not in North Korea, we're probably going to approve it.
So it's unusual, to have the data publicly available. And so I'm just curious, what do you hope scientists worldwide will be able to do with that data that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do?
Well, it gives them another data set to match. If you're a U.S. National Institute of Aging funded enterprise, you have your own data. Now we're giving you another data set to complement ADNI, which is a fabulous data set as well. And one of the weaknesses of our data set, just to be self-aware, is that particular study is cross-sectional. That is to mean we stopped without any longitudinal arm to it. It does have, though, the benefit of giving, you were kind enough to ask a really important question when we came out with our press release. You guys asked us, well, what makes you think you're, so unusual in terms of the breadth of your data? It was a fair question. One of the things I'd like people to do is download it and see the enormous proteomics data set we have. We have EM TheraPro out of Emory. We have SomaLogic and Olink. We're about to add Olink. Now, I modestly believe that is the largest proteomics data set over the top of a well-characterized AD population in the field today. So there's a lot of talk about proteomics. Okay, researchers go crazy and access our data. We are eager to see if proteomics will allow us a efficient and leaner way to make some judgments about the presence of co-pathologies or comorbidities that are influencing cognitive health and our trial design. This is a very emerging area of science, as you know, and there's a lot of work to be done. We have a full genome, obviously, on the everyone as well. So we're optimistic that if science, folks that are scientists, or for that matter, a curious kid in blue jeans in their garage or her garage wants to pop open their computer and play with our data, we're going to let them do that, because I don't think there's a monopoly on brains. And I think free association and asking important questions of correlation is a really interesting way to discover things.
Yeah, you have a portion on your website about citizen scientists, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That is so we don't get research done anywhere in the world without people giving up their most precious research resource, and that is their time. Especially if you're my age, where you have many more yesterdays than you have tomorrows. And so as a consequence, you cannot not honor the contribution of someone saying, I'm going to give you 2 years of my life and let you trail me in a study. And so the Citizen Scientist Program is our program giving back and celebrating the enormous contributions of people in clinical research, both their caregivers, the people that do the work in the clinical trial sites, and most importantly, the actual people that participate in clinical research.
So you recently announced a collaboration with Gene Tech. to expand Alzheimer's clinical trial access for underrepresented communities. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that's an issue. It's an issue, probably in research in general. But how will this partnership work in practice, and what outcomes are you aiming for?
So I typically never correct smart people. It's Genentech.
Oh, Genentech, sorry.
It's all right. So
feel free to correct me.
Roche Genentech is one of the other leading sponsors of Alzheimer's research in the world. And they have taken a very novel approach towards trying to enrich their clinical trial populations in collaboration with us. So this is so simple. It really sort of one of those things like, why did it take so long for us or anybody else to latch onto this idea? But rather than asking folks of modest means or of racial and ethnic backgrounds to leave their community and go to a tertiary hospital system or a place that's 100 miles away to participate in research, that's not a good model. People don't want to do that. But when you bring the clinical research site to their community and do it with people that the community knows, you then result in discovering that they're just as interested and just as eager to participate in research, because dementia and Alzheimer's afflicts them at least as much. Statistically, I'd suggest it afflicts them more than it does in upper middle class white communities. So with the help of Genentech, we created something called the Site Alliance for Understudied Communities. And we helped select clinical trial sites that had some experience or a lot of experience in conducting Alzheimer's clinical trials, but that were located in places where we knew we were just demographically going to be recruiting folks from the African American, Latino, Asian American communities in real abundance. I'll give you one quick example because it's our first one. It's near and dear to me. We did this in Hermes 1 as a lead indicator. We opened a site in El Faro called El Faro, which means lighthouse in Spanish, in a place called Starr County, Texas. Now, if you go along the Rio Grande Valley, you'll find it's about 70 miles to the west of McAllen. Starr County is every year, again, in the categories you don't want to be in necessarily, ranked in some of them as one of the poorest counties in the United States, one of the highest levels of dementia county reporting in the United States. And it is a 96% Mexican American. So if you put a site there, you're likely to be able to recruit dementia patients, and you're likely to get Mexican Americans. Two good things. That site has been a hallmark of the wisdom of this strategy. We have 22 sites like that now. Not all of them quite as embedded in such a pure play in terms of the community, but all of them well versed on serving their communities and doing clinical trials. And we ran through a qualifying process for these 22 sites so that Roche Genentech could be confident, this is the most important thing actually, that they could be included in their new Tronti study. So all 22 of these sites located in understudied communities are going to be in the Tronti study. And for those on your listeners that don't know, Tronti is a brand new, really interesting monoclonal antibody study that was announced last month at AAIC. And you have to do the study, but it could be even more effective than current approved therapies. Could be. But the fact that they have taken such aggressive steps to make sure they were going to give access to the study to the broad U.S. population is a real testament to their foresight and commitment to the subject.
Genentech. I see the N in there now. You also have mobile research units operating, I read, in Florida and the West Coast, maybe they're in other places, and bringing brain health and research opportunities directly to communities. I'm curious, what impact do you expect these mobile units to have on trial diversity as well as enrollment speed?
So, yeah, we've done this before. We did it in another study, Roche Genentech study called Skyline, that they discontinued. And by the way, other pharma and other folks have mobile research units. Our strategy has been twofold. First, to continue to show and, if you will, wave the flag that we're here for them, that we're going into these communities with a sincere interest in their participation. We will have info gatherings and screenings, and the mobile research unit, we can conduct blood draws and cognitive tests in the mobile unit. You walk in the front, go to the back, come out the back, and that's productive, but you're not going to do 200 in an hour. That's it's a process. But what it does do is it demonstrates to the community that we're here, that this study's important, and you're important to us. And if you come down to our clinical trial site, which is located in the same geographical area, or broadly speaking, you can participate at your convenience in a place that is never more than 20 miles away, frequently just a few miles away. That's our strategy, is to prime the pump with the MRUs, do awareness campaigns, and then invite them down to our clinical trial sites that are really conveniently located compared to the way things used to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and we did our first ribbon cutting out east in Tampa. I think it was last week. I was there. At a fabulous Black church, Mount Zion. No, I got it wrong already. New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church.
Pretty good. Okay.
And we had about 100 people. Mm-hmm. We had the pastor and I cut the ribbon. And I am not jaded enough to consider any of that trivial. I can tell you, over the last 10 years, that has not been the normal operational process that clinical trials have pursued. No. And so we are sincere in our commitment. Then out west, we had an even bigger at Dr. Trin's TRINH site in Orange County. We had a couple hundred people. And, both of these locations are not Juneau, Alaska, so it's hot. So these people really wanted to be there, to learn more, to participate if it made sense. And in a nutshell, that's what the MRUs are all about, as a catalytic discussion environment.
All right. Well, congratulations on your Florida one. That's fantastic. So you talked about BioHermes 1 or 001. You also have a second version. Is that
BioHermes 002?
002. Okay.
Right. BioHermes 2. Briefly, it's BioHermes 1 on steroids.
Okay.
It is bigger. We'll find out if it's better. Note the humility. We'll find out if the data says it's better. Let me tell you what it does do. Another 1,000 people, cognitively normal, MCI, mild AD. We've upped our game, trying to make it 30% non-white. We are 60% enrolled. We have 600 people enrolled already. We started in early November. It is our first overseas study. We're in the UK with it as well. And what we're doing differently is we're testing against tau PET. We're testing against MRIs, and the MRIs are specifically designed to provide the most state-of-the-art scans for small vessel vascular disease in the brain. We know vascular dementia is a pathology that's clearly at work in causing dementia in a large percentage of the overall dementia population. There's a lot of debate about how big that percentage is, and there's a huge amount of debate of how to detect it. So one of the goals after developing better indicators for tau pathology is try to measure and detect vascular disease in a manner that can be generalized to clinical trials. Remember, my thing is, I'm not a scientist. My thing is, I grab science and say, I'm putting it on the ground to go give people a better, more realistic experience for precision characterization and then eventually precision therapy. That's our deal. We're also trying to measure, without telling you we've done it, because I don't know if we're going to succeed. We're going to try to measure alpha-synuclein, which is also a suspected co-pathology that nobody's measuring with any effectiveness, because the only way to measure it today is with CSF, and CSF is a difficult way to measure anything in scale. Americans aren't really keen on lumbar punctures.
Right.
And so we're trying to find blood markers that can do that. But at least we're taking a shot. Yeah. We're taking a shot. And we're looking at a number of others, a full proteomics profile again, full gene profile again, a lot of different technologies, EEG, retinal scans, as well as the digital cognitive scans, and voice cognitive measurement, which is an area that holds some promise. So we've got a real Cobb salad of technologies in here, and it's a long study. It takes 4 visits for a participant to get through it at the site, and two visits at the imaging. But if you put all that together, my friend, we're offering the field someday something and it's longitudinal. So a third of the study will go for 2 years.
All right. So you'll have to come back on if this podcast is still around in 2 years and tell us what you found.
I'd love that. But at least you see the progression,
yes.
and we're not the only ones. But we know where the field needs to start looking, and then we can ask interesting questions. Should we be including people with pronounced vascular disease in clinical trials in an ATN Alzheimer's study? I don't have an opinion. I just want to know.
Yeah, it's complicated.
And it's complicated.
Yep.
And those are the questions that I think help the field, help science get a clearer view of mechanisms of action. And that is why we build them the way we build them. Yeah. And then one last thing, because I want your viewers to hear this, since you guys are all about clinical trials, I want to make one small pitch. So when I was a young lawyer, I did some FDA regulatory work. That trained me to believe that the gold standard in many respects was 21 CFR. Because if you can have your data sets organized so that users of the data are more than 2/3 of the way ready to make an application to the FDA, you've if it's well organized, clearly, you have advanced the field, because oftentimes just sorting the data and getting it ready takes a year. Our data, you can roll it off the showroom floor, to be a little cavalier, and add your own application insight to it, and be in front of the FDA in a much shorter period of time. That's our mission. Our view is we have to be facilitating this from front door to White Oak, Maryland.
So when we're talking about all these acceleration efforts or increasing speed, I just want to make sure we touch on the topic of scientific rigor and patient safety. Can you just mention, obviously a lot of people hear about side effects, this and that, but how do you assure that these things are going to be safe if we increase speed?
Well, rigor is the defense against error. And safety is all about, one of my good friends and mentors is a guy by the name of Steve Salloway over at Brown. He is Dr. Safety. He has been a rigorous advocate for the number of the MRIs and PETs that are administered for safety for monoclonal antibodies. I can tell you his influence has permeated the field. We rigorously follow the protocol's safety requirements when we're in trials to make sure we are catching all of that. Also, IV site adverse events. It's easy to say, just as a patient advocate, it's easy to say these are small percentages, unless you're one of the ones in the small percentage that has these things happen. And then it's a very unpleasant thing indeed. In general, you have to talk to your own doctor. You have to talk to the PI in the clinical trial. Take a hard look at the place where you're going to get the work done. You know, if they aren't sweeping the corners of the facility, you can ask yourself, are they going to be rigorous about safety? I'm not kidding. Rigor starts with keeping a clean facility. So I am very comfortable that the sites we work with broadly are extraordinarily dedicated to patient safety. Unfortunate stuff does happen. The stats are clear that these are small percentages, but very real. And occasionally they can be very significant adverse events. I'm overall, as I started to tell you, I have a family history that suggests, not unlike oncology, I might add, we have to make informed decisions about, does the benefit outweigh the risk? And what you're not going to hear me say is the risk is worth the benefit. You're going to hear me say, go talk to your doc, talk to your family, do the work. But they're all getting better. Subcutaneous administration of these monoclonal antibodies is just about here. That is going to reduce the inconvenience and may, with lower doses, reduce the safety profile risk. But I didn't go to medical school. I don't make recommendations about what an individual person's decision should be. We are better off to have these things than not. I will say that. Feel very strongly that, and we are going to get better results in the future as these current monoclonal antibodies improve and these new next generations start to come through the pipe. Oh, and I'll tell you one more thing. Just got to.
Okay.
Because it's so interesting.
Okay.
It's being talked about all over, but nobody's really talking about it. Vascular dementia, inflammation, all these elements that are driving dementia. Wait till Novo Nordisk reads out at the end of this year with their GLP-1 study on dementia. There is a lot of reason to believe, and even if they read out with a tepid result, there are a lot of really smart people that I think are smart that think that that is a very promising new avenue of research. And it makes sense. You know, you're the doc, I'm not. But if you believe in anti-inflammation as an interesting way to address the causes of dementia. The GLPs are a really interesting way to examine a reduction in inflammation. We're going to start seeing those studies coming in greater frequency. That data is going to be quite interesting. Once again, you just got to run the study. I'm all about the data. But I think that is a hidden upside in dementia that we're not talking about because we haven't seen results. But if those things hit, that's a whole new dimension of opportunity.
And just to clarify, these are therapeutics that reduce inflammation, or is just research?
Right. So I'm talking about Manjaro, Ozempic.
Okay.
And they are already obviously very prevalent. Lots of people taking them.
Yeah.
And they are reducing categorically, clearly reducing A1Cs for certain patients, and weight loss is just a side benefit. Heart benefit is being demonstrated. So there's a lot of good news there's some other issues with them. I'm not Pollyannish about it, but there is interesting data and anecdotal evidence that they are also show promise for dementia. That's why Novo Nordisk ran a dementia study, which will read out in November of this year to see if those drugs, its drug set, I believe it was a dosing equivalent to Ozempic, actually reduced the progression of dementia in patients, of Alzheimer's in patients.
So specifically for dementia, then that's what they're looking at.
It's specifically for Alzheimer's. And the name of those studies are Evoke and Evoke Plus.
Okay. All right. So we're almost out of time here, but I wanted to, looking forward, do you think we will ever see a cure for Alzheimer's? Or do you think that we will learn, or maybe implement preventive strategies better?
I think we're going to do both. I think the preventive strategies will definitely come online first. I think the blood tests will inform patients of their risk better. And people then can say, well, I didn't watch my diet or stop smoking for diabetes or cardiac. Maybe if I add reduction of risk of Alzheimer's to the other two, I'll stop smoking. I'll get more sleep. I'll get more exercise. I'll eat better. Health, behavior change is difficult. And I'm a perfect example of not giving up certain lifestyle choices, despite whether they're good or not. I also think we are going to have more therapies, but not cures, come online. And I think that's going to be great. A full-blown cure, I'm 69. I'm not sure I'll see it in my lifetime. But I think we are farther along. Remember, I started with, we hadn't seen anything in 20 years. And in the last 5, we've seen 4 to 5 seminal events. You can't look at that kind of progress and not project a much better profile of opportunity than we have now. So I'm optimistic. A cure could be farther out, but new therapies that are even better, they'll be here in 5 years, maybe 10, but not much longer than that. Real benefit.
5-10 years. Okay. Well, that you'll see.
Yeah.
God willing.
Hopefully, you got God willing, and my wife's continued patience. Yes.
All right, John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And for our listeners, I will share the GAP Foundation, the website, so you can check them out for yourselves and learn more. And don't forget to subscribe, and also check out TrialSiteNews.com for articles, news, opinion pieces. Everything is there.